holding the body and honoring the body through pet loss and grief. Welcome back to another episode of Cat TV. My name is Jasmine, and today we are talking about one of my favorite topics and one of my favorite pieces around honoring and holding the body in love and reverence through death, and using ceremony as a way to support and help with grief. So if you don't already know, or you're seeing this for the first time, in December of 2024, I said goodbye to the love of my life, my fur child, Tilly, a beautiful female ginger domestic kitty cat, and also my familiar. And I remember as we were heading towards the end that I knew that this process of death and even the afterlife through burial cremation was going to be very different. I could feel that Tilly was really co-creating with me in a very different way and guiding me to have a totally different experience around this. And so when the day came on Saturday the 21st of December to say goodbye to her and allow her to take the journey of leaving her body, it was 2:30 in the afternoon, and I held her for the whole night. So she laid on my chest. I held her for the whole day. I slept with her that night in my bed, and I then held her the next day. And I was having a conversation with a beautiful soul that had really supported me through this process, and I was holding her and she was sitting on my lap, and it looked like that she had just literally walked up and placed herself there and had curled up and gone to sleep. And I knew that at some point I would have to let her go, as in burial or cremation. But I was really trusting the process and trusting the timing and allowing it to take as long as it needed to take. And I knew that I wanted to hold the body. And the beautiful soul that was really supporting me shared with me that she held the body of her beloved cat for 3 days. And it was really kind of a bit of a permission slip for me to say that I can do this differently. And so the day after Tilly had transitioned, so the 22nd of December, I could tell that there was the body was starting to break down already. There was a little bit of a smell, not strong, but just a tiny bit coming through. And so I decided that if I was holding her, that was really, the heat actually helps to accelerate the process. And so I knew that I really wanted to wrap her in a bed of roses. And I remember getting a box, getting an ice pack, wrapping the ice pack in a tea towel, and then placing her on top of the tea towel so she wasn't directly on the ice. And that just helps to preserve the body. And if you think about it, when us humans transition out of these vessels, we really go into the freezer, right? And a little side note, but I remember actually looking this up on the internet, and they said you could put the body in the freezer, and I was like, this feels so wrong. I'm not putting my cat in the freezer. And so I did the ice pack with her, and I lay her there, and then I walked up the street to a neighbor's house who had a beautiful garden of flowers. The house was recently sold, so it was a bit isolated, not being lived in. And I walked through her garden, and I had music playing, and I allowed myself to take an intuitive walk through the garden to pick the flowers that were right for her, that felt like a beautiful reflection and honoring. And as I was speaking to my friend who lives in Thailand, I had this moment, this light bulb moment that said, of course, why do we do this with humans? We put them in the freezer, we preserve the body, we then have a sacred honoring process, we create flowers as a way of reverence to say goodbye. And I literally can remember the moment I'm standing in the garden. There's these beautiful pink flowers to the right of me or just behind me. And I think, of course, why would we not honor the body? For it was her body that held her soul, that allowed her to incarnate, that allowed her to be here, and allowed her to walk this earth and co-create with me for 15 years and 3 weeks. If it wasn't for her body, she wouldn't have even reincarnated. Like, she wouldn't even be here in physical form, for it was her body that allowed her that. It was her vessel that allowed her to share this life with me. Why would I not honor the body? And once I received that light bulb moment, it was like, of course I'm doing this. So I collected all of the flowers and I walked back home with a beautiful bag. I had my music playing, and actually my father had said to me, like, we need to bury the cat. We need to bury her. And I was like, I know we do, but like not now. And we literally had a little bit of a disagreement, a little bit of a bickering in the backyard, because I was like processing through this grief and needed this time to mourn and just move through this process. And I didn't want to rush this. It was a really important thing for me to not rush this process. And my father, who, was born in the 40s, grew up with like, you just go get it done, right? And it was like, well, they've died, my mother's died, the pet's died, right? Now we've got to bury it. It's sad, but life goes on. And I was choosing a different path. I was choosing the path of sacredness, the path of reverence, the path of love, the path of devotion. And you don't rush this process. And so I was in my bedroom. I had Amazing Grace playing in the background by Elvis. This was the song that we chose together, Tilly and I, as a way of honoring. It felt like the perfect song for us. And I laid in crystals in all 4 corners of the box and creating a crystal grid to be able to hold my girl. And then I started layering flowers all around her and on top of her. And this was the way of ceremony. This was the way of me saying, thank you, Tilly. Thank you for this beautiful, beautiful body that brought you here and enabled us to be together, that enabled us to have 15 years and 3 weeks together, that enabled you to walk this earth for that period of time. And if it wasn't for this beautiful, reverent, sacred body of yours, you would still be in the ethers. And like, I touched her face so gently, and I touched her little ears and her beautiful tail. She had the most beautiful tail. And her beautiful paws, like I could still like straighten her paws out and bend them, like she hadn't gone completely stiff. I mean, she was stiff, but not like frozen, that makes sense. I could still kind of move her ligaments and I could stretch out her leg. And it was a very healing process. And what I really learned through this process of holding the body was that it is one of the most beautiful healing things that I have ever done. And I would never, ever not do this for a beloved pet ever again. And she stayed in my room that night. So she obviously slept with me, but she was not in my bed. She was still in her little flower bed, as I call it. And then the next day I sat with her flower bed. I played tuning forks for her. I had a shamanic drum. The tuning forks I had bought for her, but they arrived the day after she transitioned. And I played music to her and I sang to her. And taking my pain and my grief and my heartache and my loss and my sorrow to ceremony, it was so healing. It was so healing for the nervous system, and it was so healing for the limbic brain as well. And this process of taking our grief to ceremony is a really ancient shamanic practice where they honor the body with reverence and give thanks and gratitude for the body for allowing it to be the vessel that we explore this earth with. And so I was really grateful because I was in the southern hemisphere and it was summer at the time, but we were having a really cold summer, so it was only like low 20s. So the ice pack that I had lasted 3 days. I think if it was like 40 degrees, then perhaps this process would have needed to be a little bit different. But I chose to hold the body for 4 days. And I think it was on the second day, the flowers started to obviously wilt a little bit, so I rearranged it. On the third day, I had ceremony with the family, so I brought her into the living space and I created like a beautiful mandala. I put the rug down, I put her in the middle. I had a candle that said love. I lit a candle for her. I had 6 roses and I played songs, and I asked everybody to share their favorite memory of something that I love of Tilly. And it went for an hour. And again, that was so healing. And I read to her. And then she went back into my room. We slept together that night again. And then on the 25th of December, all the family was together for Christmas Day, and I brought Tilly into the dining space with us. She was in her beautiful bed of roses, sitting right next to me, to my right, and she was there having Christmas Day with us. And actually 12 months earlier we'd had Christmas Day in the same spot, and she was up on the dining room table sitting in all the boxes because she loved boxes, and it felt so poignant and what's the word, just right and sacred. It felt like a beautiful honoring that 12 months earlier she was here on the table, and 12 months later she was here with us again, also in her box in a different form. And then all the family was together, and I released her to the garden, and she chose that spot as well. When I asked her, I think it's previously a huge big downpour of rain happened, so I hope that you can still hear me. Previously, we would bury the animals in the same spot. Like, we would just bury all our animals down the back of the property. And this time it didn't feel right. This time it was like, no, Tilly, where do you want to be buried? Where would you like to be released back to the earth? And she told me. She told me through my intuition exactly where she wants to be laid to rest. And it was in a spot. We had a beautiful big tree where lorikeets would come and feed every single day. And we had a family of rats, and she would love going out and catching the baby rats and eating a few each springtime. And she'd lay there in the sun as well and get the morning sun. And even in the afternoon where the concrete was warm, she'd go and lay there. So she chose that spot. And so this whole process from the day of transition on summer solstice on December 21st, she chose to leave that day, to holding her the whole night, to holding the body, to creating the flower bed, to joining her at Christmas, and then leaving on Christmas Day. So it was 4 days all up that I held the body, and those 4 days allowed me the time to be able to calm my body, calm my nervous system, calm my limbic brain, calm the shock of what was happening. And note, I was still processing shock a month later, like still in January, I was still processing the shock of Tilly, but it enabled me to not go into like the depths of grief, like the really deep dark hole of grief that I think we can come to when we lose somebody that we love so much. And holding the body was the highest, was a form of love, of reverence, of sacredness, of devotion, of gratitude and thanks. And not rushing that process was one of the most beautiful things that I have done and experienced for myself. And Tilly guided me that whole process and that whole way. And it enabled me that space to be able to just be with her and to again then come into another layer of acceptance that it's a time to go. But it also enabled me to see pieces of attachment wounding, of where I was unable to let go, of where I was not fully trusting. It enabled me to see the representations and the hooks of my own wounding, which I have spoken about in previous videos. So please go back to previous videos where I speak about attachment, wounding, and codependency and various other pieces. And so prayer, in addition to this, was also something that helped me go through. I remember while she was in her bed of roses, sitting down, writing a prayer to her, writing her a gratitude letter of thanks, like, thank you, Tilly, for everything that you gave to me. Thank you, Tilly, for the 15 years and 3 weeks. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the laughter. Thank you for the connection. Thank you for the safety. Thank you for being there in some of my darkest and hardest moments. Thank you for loving me unconditionally, and on it goes. And I actually read this letter to her. And I also, when I buried her in the box. I took the ice packs out. Obviously, I put the box in her, and I gave her the letter that I read to her in ceremony. I offered her a prayer. I gave some crystals to her, and I buried her in her flower bed. And offered her to Mama Gaia and said a prayer and said, you know, Tilly, Mama Gaia will take over now, and she will help you with the next part of your journey and hold the body as it decomposes and transcends back into the light. May you journey sweetly, may you journey lightly, and may you journey with love and into the light. And when it is your time to come back, and it is in the highest good of you and me, may we be reunited and reconnected and journeyed once again. Namaste. And I think that's why I love that process so beautifully. And it's one of the things that I would encourage every single one of you guys to do, that when the time comes to say goodbye to a loved pet, that of course, if it feels right, to hold the body. Maybe it's 1 day, maybe it's 2 days, maybe it's 3 days. Probably 4 days is the max, because there does come a time where you do need to let the next part of the journey continue, and I also speak about that. But honoring the body, and with a flower bed or a way that feels right for you, and holding the body and taking all of this to ceremony is one of the most beautiful ways that we can transmute our grief and take both of us back to the light. And I would be honoured to support any one of you that feels like you would like some support and help around that. You know, I will drop my Instagram account, but also my email address that you can reach out to have some support through this process, I would be honored to do that. But I trust that this video has been supportive. I trust that this video has helped you. I will also post a video of me doing my flower bed for Tilly, so you guys can see a little insight into what that was like for us. And until next time, take care with infinite love and gratitude. Keep following the light, and I'll see you soon.